¿Qué tal, amigos? Bienvenidos a su programa de 18 minutos. Soy Francisco Rodríguez Aguirre, presidente de Smart Speakers, el principal buró de conferencistas de Latinoamérica, y me acompaña mi buen amigo Mauricio.
Un privilegio, como siempre, mi querido Pancho, compartir contigo este espacio y con nuestros amigos de Mundo Ejecutivo también. Y además, hoy una entrevista diferente, ¿no crees? Un tema que a mí, al menos, me llama mucho la atención.
Sí, está muy padre porque es el mundo militar de la Fuerza Aérea que tienen que reaccionar de manera inmediata, ¿no? Y para eso nos acompaña Chris Boucousis, quien es el director general de Afterburner, que es un grupo de impactantes pilotos de la Fuerza Aérea Norteamericana que pilotean ahora sí que aviones de combate F-15 y pues que nos comparten todo este mundo que representa. Hello, Chris, how are you? So, how do pilots plan special missions? ¿Cómo los pilotos planean estas misiones especiales?
It's a great question. And I guess fighter pilots understand the importance of planning because when we're executing, when we're doing our job, we know that we don't have a lot of time to think. So we spend our time thinking in the plan to get as close as we can to the perfect plan because we understand when we're out doing our job each and every day, the world changes very quickly. And when you're flying at 1,000 miles per hour, when you're a leader of 4, 8, maybe 40 aircraft, the more we plan and coordinate on the ground means the less stress we feel in the air. And this is the behavior we need to change in business at the moment because we're always flying the plane. We're always busy. We don't spend the time to stop, come together as a team, collaborate, and agree the direction that we need to move forward. So to be better at doing your job each day, you need to invest a little bit of time in planning first.
Following that idea, Christian, how do you choose the team that will carry out the special missions? I think it's very important to identify the proper talent. Absolutely, you know.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you might be surprised to understand that the Air Force actually recruits mindset and avoids talent because we've learned over the years that there's many talented pilots who have had an accident. So if you look at terms that are used in business and in sport, we have more of a moneyball approach. We like to have teams of above average people rather than one or two exceptional people. Our system is what makes above average people exceptional. We have a shared mental model. The way we think is exactly the same, but we also understand in the workplace, our turnover every 2 years, everyone in the squadron is changed out, yet the culture remains the same. So the methodology that we use at Afterburner is a methodology that means that we develop young pilots quickly, that we hold our more experienced pilots accountable, but we also understand that when we're out to deliver on a mission, this might be a project in business or a sales call or a product launch, is that when we're in the mission mindset, we leave all of the structure and the hierarchy behind, and we're very focused on clear, measurable objectives and embracing a culture that we call the debrief culture. So yeah, our team is important, but recruit mindset and train people with a great mindset in the skills that they need to do the job, and make sure that you have a nameless and rankless organization where we can share in an open and honest way the good things and the bad things that happen each day.
I'm sure my colleagues in HR will be very interested in going deeper into this difference mindset versus talent. So that's a good point to discuss further.
For sure. And going more in depth, ¿cómo se liderean estas misiones especiales? How do you lead these special missions?
When we look at leadership, we look at leadership quite differently. We look at leadership in terms of the organization. So the CEO, the management of the organization as a form of leadership. But then we look at mission leadership, and that might be the leadership of 4 or 8 airplanes on a mission. And then the third element of leadership is we call leading situational awareness. So in combat, when things deteriorate, when we're very busy flying the airplane, is of all the 8 pilots, whoever has the best awareness of what's going on, they become the leader. Often in HR and in business, we focus on leaders being leaders of people. We focus on leaders being leaders of people, leaders of a mission, and a leader in the moment. A slightly different perspective. There's 3 leadership styles.
That's absolutely interesting. Regarding training, Christian, what are the specifications of the training for pilots in preparation in advance to these special missions?
We are excellent at training. And the good news is we spend most of our time training, not at war. And that's a good thing, right? When we're training, the world is a happy place. And we're happy with that. What we understand with training is we have to take someone from the street who has no experience in the military, no experience as a pilot, and turn them into a very capable fighter pilot in 2.5 years. So the training is the same, 426 missions per pilot. Through that process, we're constantly expanding our comfort zone. We have a different philosophy around that. Our training model is to make sure that we don't step pilots outside their comfort zone, because when that happens, the fear kicks in, their learning curve drops away, and they actually regress back to their last known behavior or knowledge. Throughout the training program, though, there will be 1 or 2 occasions where a pilot is deliberately pushed outside their comfort zone. And when that happens, what the instructor and the organization is looking for is the pilot recognizes they're outside their comfort level, that they put up their hand and they say, I'm feeling unsafe now. I'm just going to fly the aircraft safely and I'm going to stop the mission. The pilots that don't do that, the instructor has to take over before they have an accident, and they're the pilots that actually end up being washed out from the program. So often we hear people talking about get outside your comfort zone, growth happens outside your comfort zone. Well, actually fear is what happens outside your comfort zone. So we're very good at every mission, just pushing it a little bit more inside the pilot's capability. So within 2.5 years, they're these incredible pilots that can fly a 20-ton machine at the speed of sound and do it safely and effectively.
Chris, how do you execute in the real world? And what do you call the gap of execution?
We tend to get very attached to our goals, and the Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman has this philosophy which he calls the planning fallacy. And what the planning fallacy means is everything we plan is almost impossible to achieve for a whole number of reasons. So what we understood as pilots is we have to plan things that we can actually achieve. It has to be realistic. So rather than get really focused on the objective and focused on our performance today, what we focus on is the gap in between the two. Because when there's a gap between what you want and what you do, you can do something about it. And it's in that gap that we learn all of our lessons. So our planning is what sets our expectation. Our results are what actually happens in the real world. And if you're trying to do something in the future, then today you're always going to be a bit short. And in the middle is where debriefing happens. So a debrief is where a fighter pilot says, what did I set out to achieve? What actually happened? Why is there a gap? But most importantly, what am I going to do about it tomorrow? And it's through those actions that we learn, not just the lesson, but applying it. And every day, every pilot in the squadron will apply 1 or 2 actions that will equal 40 to 60 actions a day. And that is how we grow and learn so quickly. And we're able to swap out every person in an organization on a 2-year basis, but still maintain a very high level of effectiveness.
That's a very good point. And I wonder, Chris, you have the plan, and sometimes the plan is not working. Specifically, these days that we are dealing with uncertainty, etc. If the plan is not working as you expected, and you mentioned already the gap between what's desired and the reality, how are you prepared to face those changing environment that I'm sure you face in every mission, something that is not expected?
So the first thing is we ask ourselves why. So if we have a plan and it's not working, why is it? Is it because our execution isn't very good, or is it a bad plan? And when we discover the answer to that, then we take action. We either improve our execution or we change the plan. We have a saying, you're better to plan small than plan often. If you look at some of the biggest brands globally now, Nike, for example, Nike has completely thrown out its strategic planning methodology. And now Nike only plans on a 3-month horizon. So none of these 5-year plans, 3-year plans, 1-year plans. Now it's all about plan often, plan every day, and expect that the world is going to change around you very quickly. So rather than be surprised, it's better to be ready.
That's a good point for our audience. As a key takeaway, how long are you planning in advance? 3 months, 6 months? That's a good point.
And in this modern world.
And in this particular world, yes.
Before there used to be, the long time.
5 years. Yeah. As Chris
Yeah,
says.
I mean, I think, you imagine what everyone planned in their 1-year strategy back in 2020 in February, and then COVID hit. All of those hours, all that time, right? So you do need to be flexible. And if the thing we have is we have the same planning method, it doesn't matter whether it's a 1-year plan, a 6-month plan, a 3-month plan, or a plan today. We have a common model that every single person understands. And that means we can just get on with the detail rather than wonder about how are we going to plan this today. It's a very efficient process. We measure our days in seconds. And that's why we have all of these mindsets and methodologies. And that's what's happening to the world today. It's speeding up. It's a lot faster than it was 3 years ago. And we're also dealing with an enormous amount of information and analytics, that's the problem fighter pilots solved 60 years ago. So our mindset and our flawless execution methodology is more relevant now than it ever has been, because that's what we do. We think in seconds. You'll both be aware of that. 3 years ago, people would be planning their conferences 1 year in advance. Now it's 3 to 6 months. Everything is sped up and everything is faster.
Right. Great. ¿Cómo aprendes de cada misión para siempre ir mejorando? How do you learn from each mission to always be improving? Chris.
It's a great question. The first thing is you have to be open to it. You have to want to learn. The second is it starts with the leadership. And the third is you have to create a nameless and rankless culture. And what nameless and rankless means is we understand there's politics in an organization. Look at the world today. There's politics between countries, there's politics internally, and there's politics inside a business, inside a family. There's always politics. There's always assumptions and relationships. So we're never going to change that. What we can do, though, as a team is decide, hey, we're going to step away from that for 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. And we're going to create a little bubble. And inside that bubble, we're all equal. And we're going to focus on the facts. We're not going to talk about opinions. And because we have a great plan, and our plan, we measure everything, we can have this debrief, and we call it the ORCA debrief. There's 4 steps. What's our objective? What's our result? What's the cause for this result? And what's my action today? And in fact, fighter pilots say in a debrief, I made a mistake. I put my hand up. I accept it, and I'm going to fix it. And I'm really happy to be here. And the best fighter pilots are the ones that have the ability to debrief very well. So the debrief is the significant cultural difference between fighter pilots and every other branch of the military and every organization. In 27 years, we've never seen an organization that has a debrief culture before.
That's a very good point. And I wonder also, Chris, in this environment, with these particular challenges, for the leaders should be really tough compared to other type of organizations and sectors, the inspiration to the people. How do you inspire the pilots to be always engaged and committed to the mission and to the teamwork?
I think that the best way to inspire people is to include them in your planning. And the second is to give them a sense of purpose around what they do. So when they're doing, a lot of things in what we do in business is boring. You're not going to get away from that. There's a lot of routine tasks. If you look at, for example, logistics, there's lots of driving, lots of shifting boxes. But if people understand why it's important that they do that job, that a satisfied customer brings joy to their children, if that present gets there on time, if the box isn't broken, we're very purposeful human beings. And as a result, we need to know that when I do something, that it connects to a reason why I'm doing it. So as a leader, that's your job. Your job is to be really good at connecting people with why they do their job. And then once they understand that, your job is to help them. Once everyone understands that, your job is to help them each and every day to get there. When it comes to debriefing, the leader has to be the first person to say, hey, this was what I set out to do today. I didn't achieve it. Here's why, and here's what I'm going to do about it tomorrow. There's nothing more inspiring to a young fighter pilot to see the commander of the Air Force admit to their mistakes and shortcomings and commit to fix them tomorrow. It's incredibly powerful.
Great. Chris, can you, like in the second question, you told us that there were 3 kinds of leadership. ¿No? En su primera pregunta nos decía de 3 tipos de liderazgo. Can you explain them a little bit? We have 2 minutes, so but
sure,
I had
no
that
problem.
doubt.
So it's leading people, leading outcomes, and leading in the moment. So leading people is more like a management style of leadership. You need good systems. People need to be paid on time. You need to provide a paternal or maternal framework. It's more about managing relationships inside the organization. Then every day, organizations need to do things. You might be a car manufacturer or a parts manufacturer, oil and gas. You may be a marketing company delivering a marketing campaign. So you have outcomes to achieve on a daily basis that have nothing to do with managing a person. So every outcome needs a leader, and the leader needs to be able to bring a team together of people that might do different things against a common outcome. Once that common outcome is delivered and we're in execution, any single person on the team, if they're aware of a problem, they're aware of a client maybe having bad body language, if they're aware of anything derailing the plan or the execution, then they step up in the moment and they lead the team towards the safe territory, towards the great outcome. Because no single human can have awareness of everything. And as a human, we're limited to either thinking or doing. So when a leader of an outcome is busy doing or busy engaged with a client, they lose sight of the big picture. And that's where we let the team, any member of the team can be a leader. So if you think about it, we're all leaders. What we need to understand, though, is what moment are we leading right now? And that's what fighter pilots do very well. We understand that the mission is successful and we come home safely because in the moment on the day, any one of us can take over and lead and turn the squadron around and get us home. And we're all authorized to make that decision.
I really like this concept that everyone can become the leader when they find out a difficult situation, with a client or I don't know, with an internal person.
You have to assume you are the leader in that particular situation. Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, and permission to do that. People have to know that's okay. And also, you can't just blurt out, right? You have to do it in a way that's, excuse me, boss, I'll just talk to you for a minute and give them the opportunity to get things back on track. But that ability to speak up is a form of leadership.
Great. It has come to an end, Chris.
Wow, that was quick.
Thank you really much. I really like the comparison between the Air Force and the real life business leadership and execution.
Well, we all have to lead. We all have to get things done, and the world has become a much faster place and much more complex than ever before. And that's the environment fighter pilots grew up in, and that's why how we think and how we do things, it can be super useful for organizations and individuals.
And Afterburner gives conferences and
Keynotes, seminars,
consultancy
workshops.
keynotes about all this. Well, thanks a lot, Chris. It's a pleasure to have us with us. Y muchas gracias, amigos de Mundo Ejecutivo, de la Medir y de Smart Speakers. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Mau.
Nos vemos en la próxima oportunidad. Sigamos aprendiendo. Y muchas gracias, Chris. Grandes aprendizajes en este programa. Gracias.